development process, and it is very important to understand the drug development process, specifically when you want to work in the regulatory writing field. Drug development process means that when a drug is developed means like the drug, when it is discovered, now it is to be used on humans. So it cannot be directly tested on humans. It has to undergo various processes, or it cannot be directly introduced into the market. It has to undergo various processes, like first it is tested on animals, then it undergoes a review process, then it is tested on humans, which is known as clinical trials, which is again done into 3 phases, and then again it is subjected to regulatory review. It is the IND application is filed, and then the drug enters into the market. Okay, so this is the whole drug development process. And the drug development process, it is divided into 2 stages, that is preclinical studies and clinical studies. Preclinical studies means when the drug is tested on animals, and clinical studies means when the drug is tested on humans. Okay, so following drug development, what it is, let's see. Following the identification of a lead molecule through the process of drug discovery, drug development is a process of bringing a new pharmaceutical drug to market. Preclinical research on organisms the lead, so is the drug development process. It starts with the, now this is a whole process that is named as drug discovery and development. So drug discovery, it is a first phase, we can say, and the next phase is of drug development. Okay, so now drug discovery is what, like when a new drug is, in which a new drug is discovered, it is divided into 4 stages, that is target identification, target validation, lead identification, and lead optimization. So when the drug and in this also there are various processes, various methods which are involved, various assays are there are various computational techniques which are used nowadays to design a drug, that is, or to find a new compound, that is those are virtual screening, molecular docking and all. But with that you do not have to be concerned, because from medical writing point of view, only understanding of drug development is required. So we will discuss about drug discovery in brief, just for your understanding, but in detail we'll discuss the drug development process. Okay, so following the identification of a lead molecule through the process of drug discovery. So when a lead molecule is discovered, okay, drug development process starts, and this drug development process is a process which was undertaken prior to introducing a new pharmaceutical drug to the market. Okay, then preclinical research on organisms and animals is a part of this process and is applying for regulatory status with agencies like the US Food and Drug Administration for an investigational new drug in order to start the human clinical trial. So how this process goes, like after the discovery of a drug development process starts. And as I said earlier, that drug development process, it has 2 stages, that is preclinical development and clinical development. Preclinical development, you can call it as preclinical studies or non-clinical studies, where the drug is tested on animals. Okay, now when the drug is tested on animals and that testing is complete, now the drug is ready, and it is and this drug development process is done first of all to ensure that the drug is therapeutically effective and safe. Now I will tell you first of all what is a drug. Okay, drug is a chemical compound which is having a therapeutic activity against a disease, or it can be used in the treatment, management, or diagnosis of a disease. And what are the 2 important characteristics of a drug? That it should be therapeutically effective. Therapeutically effective means it should have the therapeutic activity against that disease, means it should be able to cure a disease or reverse the disease condition or manage the disease. And second is therapeutically safe. Therapeutically safe means that it should not have any serious life-threatening or any serious or life-threatening adverse event, or it should not lead to death of any patient who is taking that drug. In that, and if there are non-serious side effects also or adverse effects also, but they should be they should be not very frequent. Okay, so then a drug is said to be effective and safe. Now, but this is just a hypothesis initially, that the drug is safe and effective, just to ensure the safety and efficacy of the drug development process is undertaken, where the drug is first tested on animals. Okay, and from the animals we have got the result that on animals the drug is safe and effective, and now from the results which we have got from the animal studies, we can speculate that what can be the effect of the drug on humans. Okay, so now the drug is now after preclinical studies, the drug is tested on humans in the clinical trial phase. But now the drug cannot be tested on humans directly. First, it has to undergo a regulatory process in which the applicant or the sponsor, they files an application which is known as IND, investigational new drug application, which is filed to the regulatory authorities, in which the sponsor, they submit all the details which they have got, all the detailed report of preclinical studies. Okay, and preclinical studies, the detailed report of preclinical studies, plus the important documents related to the forthcoming clinical studies, like the protocol, investigators brochure, informed consent form, that we will discuss later in detail. Okay, so all these documents are submitted to the regulatory authorities, and then after that the regulatory authority will review these documents, and after that they will grant permission to conduct clinical trial on humans, and then after that the clinical trial on humans starts. It may also include the step of obtaining regulatory approval with a new drug application in order to market the drug. Okay, so now once the sponsor, they got approval to conduct the clinical trial on humans. Now clinical trials on humans also, they are conducted into 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, in which the population of the patients on which the clinical trial are to be conducted, it increases gradually. In first phase there will be lesser individuals or the participants, then in second phase it will increase, and in the third phase it will increase again, to see the efficacy. And the main objective of these clinical trial is to see the efficacy and safety of the drug on larger population. Okay, and also to get to know more about the adverse effects which are related to the, or which are associated with the use of the drug, and also to get information which is and also to get the information which is relevant to the safety, efficacy, adverse effect, bioavailability, pharmacokinetics, and pharmacodynamics of the drug. So these terminologies also we will discuss. Okay, and then after that, when the clinical trial on humans are completed, then again the drug has to undergo a review process. That is, now again the applicant, they will file the application named as NDA, new drug application is filed in order to get the approval from the regulatory authorities to market that drug. And once they have got the approval from the reports which they have submitted, that yes, these reports are okay, and the results which are obtained, it may be concluded from the result that the drug is safe and effective to be used on humans, and now the drug is tested on humans. So the drug is now tested on humans, and it is safe and effective to be used on humans, and now the drug is ready for its commercial use. Okay, it normally takes more than 10 years for a vaccine or medication to be approved, from concept of to preclinical testing in a lab to clinical trial development, including phase 1 to 3 trials. Okay, now from the starting, now as the clinical trial process starting from the discovery till the drug enters into the market, it takes approximately a time of 5 to 10 years for a drug to enter into the market, because it is a very lengthy process. It takes years for a drug to enter in a market. Okay, starting from the drug discovery till the drug enters into the market, it is an average time, I'm telling you, which is of between 5 to 10 years. It was a way longer earlier when there was no computational methods, but nowadays there are various computational methods which are used, but they are used only during the drug discovery process. So drug discovery process, so that time and financial expenditure has been cut shorted. Okay, and then once the drug enters into the market, the process does not stop here. There are phase 4 studies, which is known as post-marketing studies or post-marketing surveillance or pharmacovigilance studies, which are conducted on the drug, and that is conducted throughout the life cycle of the drug, means till the drug is in the market. Okay, and these pharmacovigilance activities, risk management activities, they are planned by the marketing authorization holder, and they conduct these activities on the drug to get more knowledge about the safety and to analyze the benefit and the benefit and adverse drug reactions, benefit and risk which are associated with the use of the drug, and also to get more knowledge about the drug, means the drug can be used in some other indication, or what is the marketing experience of the drug is behaving the same way as it was reported in the clinical trial process. Sometimes what happens, the drug fails when they are introduced in the market because they are exposed to a larger population belonging to different, they have the different demographic characteristics, racicity and ethnicity. Generally in the during the clinical trial process, the close monitoring of the participants are done, and we have the population, and the clinical trials are done in very controlled settings. But when the drug is entered into the market, there are various medication errors, overdose cases are reported, cases of adverse events are reported depending upon the varied condition of the patients. So that information is to be collected so that the experience of using the drug can be enhanced, and and it will not cause any harm to the public. Okay, so this is the overall objective, or this is the overall process of drug development. Okay, then now we will discuss about now what is the role of medical writers in drug development process. So as I said, that drug development process, it starts with drug discovery. So it is, the whole process is known as drug discovery and development. Okay, so first the new drug is discovered, and then it is subjected to animal testing, and then after it is tested on humans. So in drug discovery process, the medical writers are not much required, or they are not required at all. It is just the researchers and the other scientists and other professionals. So the documentation which is done, the documentation part in the drug development process, that is done, especially the documentation which is done before the initiation of the clinical trial process, or after the completion of the clinical trial process, and during the marketing of the drug, or after the marketing of the drug, or after completion of the preclinical studies. So that is known as, those documents are made by the medical writers, and medical writers are required in the drug development process. Okay, so now we will discuss each of these, like what are the medical writing services which the medical writers can provide during the drug development process. So we have divided this into 3 stages, which is, first is the preclinical stage. It is not a discovery phase, it is written wrong here. It is not a discovery phase, it is the development phase only. And as I said, the development phase, it consists of 2 specific phases, that is the preclinical studies and clinical studies. Okay, so in the preclinical studies, what are the documentation which is done by the medical writer? First, they make the preclinical study reports. So preclinical study reports are the reports which are made after the completion of the clinical trial process. So once the clinical trial process is completed, okay, and so once the clinical trial process is completed, and then the process for drug and then after that the process of clinical trial start. But before that, the regulatory documentation, or the drug, it has to undergo the regulatory process. And for undergoing the regulatory process, there are various documents which are made by the medical writer and which are submitted to the regulatory authorities. Some documents are related to clinical research, that is the protocol, informed consent form, and all these documents. And one document which is made after the completion of the preclinical studies, in which it is mentioned that how these preclinical studies are completed, and how these preclinical studies are completed, what is the procedure which is followed, what is the result which is obtained. So that is done through the preclinical study. So for that, the preclinical study reports are written, and in the preclinical study reports, it is mentioned that how these studies are conducted, any of the study during the preclinical study it is conducted, and what is the procedure which is followed. Okay, and what are the result which is obtained, what are the species which are being studied. So all that information is given in the preclinical study reports, which is made by the medical writer. Then preclinical sections of IND, that is investigational new drug application. So preclinical sections in the same report, that is the preclinical research report. So only the summary of this preclinical research report is given in the preclinical sections of INDs, that is investigational new drug. Then clinical sections of INDs. So clinical sections of INDs means the clinical where suppose if any drug which is already approved or which is not a new chemical entity, so means the drug is already available in the market, but now the drug is being reintroduced in the market with new formulation or with new formulation or with new a new route of administration or with new combination or any fixed dose combination is there. So in that new combination, if the drug is introduced, so that is known as the preclinical. So that in that case, or in case if the drug is not available in the Indian market, it is there in the other country, in the market of other country, and now we are importing that drug in our country. So for that purpose, and now we have to conduct the clinical trials in our country. So now for that purpose, in case if so for that purpose, generally what happens, the clinical trials are conducted, but the information which is available from the previous clinical trials, okay, from the previous clinical trials which are conducted, if the information is available from those, any significant information is available, so that is submitted along with the IND. So that is known as clinical sections of, that information is shared in the clinical sections of IND. Then clinical development plans. So clinical development plan is actually a document which you can say that it is a blueprint of how the clinical trials will be conducted, what is administrative information, what is the budget of clinical trial process, what is the financial expenditure which is required in the clinical trial process. So all that information is shared in the clinical development plan. Okay, so and generally this clinical development plan is shared with the sponsor, and it is shared with the funders or with the funders or with the government organizations, agencies, to seek the funding from them. Then investigators brochure. So investigators brochure is a document which contains all the information about the investigational product or IP. And investigational product is actually the drug which is responsible for conducting investigational product is a product which is like investigational product for which the study, the clinical trial we are conducting. Okay, so that is the investigational product. Okay, and that investigational product is about that, what are the physical properties, chemical properties, what are the pharmaceutical properties, pharmacological properties, what is pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of that particular drug, that is written in the investigators brochure. And this investigators brochure is subjected to investigator, means it is made for the investigator, it is given to the investigator so that the investigator can come to know about the investigational product, and if he wants to add on something to the study, to the clinical trial study, to the protocol, then he can also give a suggestion. Otherwise he will come to know that what are the different properties of the investigation product and how they have to handle that investigation product, how they have to administer it to the participants. And in case if any adverse effect occurs, or if in case if any adverse effect occurs, or in case if any overdosing occurs, so in that case what can be the best medical management which can be provided to the participants. The next is the exploratory protocol. So exploratory protocol is made for the exploratory trials. So exploratory trials are conducted, like there are different types of trials. Suppose the sponsor is interested to extend the trials, like generally when we conduct the clinical trial process, so we do not consider the pediatric population and pregnant and lactating women and the participants those who have hepatic or renal impairment. So we do not consider those participants until and unless it is required. So in case if we want to see that what is the effect of the drug on pregnant women, or what is the effect of the drug on pediatric population, so in that case we extrapolate the same trial, we conduct the same trial on the concerned population, but here we are considering the population which is very less, and the micro dose of that drug is used to see the effect of the drug on that population, and to see the effect of the drug on that population. So that is known as so hence for these trials, the protocol which is made, so that is known as exploratory protocol. The next is CTD module. So CTD module is not made after the preclinical trial. It is wrongly placed here. CTD module is made after the when the clinical trial process is complete, means when the marketing authorization holder, they want to take permission from the regulatory authority to market the drug. At that point, the CTD modules are made, and CTD stands for common technical document. And common technical document, it is a kind of a dossier. It's a kind of a dossier, and then that dossier is contains several documents. Like it contains, now the CTD in itself, it is made up of 5 modules. Module 1, which is related to administrative information related to the drug, that depends, that changes from region to region. Then module number 2, which is related to overviews and summaries, it contains QoS, quality overall summary of the drug. It contains clinical and non-clinical summaries, clinical and non-clinical overview. Then module number 3 is related to the quality of the drug, where you have to write about the pharmaceutical properties of the drug, and also what is the quality and purity of the drug, what are the different studies, analytical studies which are conducted on the drug. So about that. Then module number 4 is related to non-clinical study reports, and module number 5 is related to clinical study reports. Okay, so this CTD module, it consists of 5 this CTD document or dossier, it consists of 5 modules. Each module has different each different module is in itself a different document, which is combined in the form of a dossier, and then it is submitted to the regulatory authorities. The next is clinical research. So the next, after when the preclinical studies are conducted, then clinical studies start on humans. And during the clinical research process, what are the documents which are made by the medical writer? So first is investigators brochure updates. Now investigator brochure, clinical trial protocol, informed consent documents. So all these documents are made before the initiation of the clinical trial process, because these documents are submitted along with the IND to take permission from the regulatory authority to conduct the clinical trial on, to get permission from the regulatory authority to conduct the clinical trial on humans. Okay, so for that purpose, so these documents are made, like investigators brochure, which is made. So I've already told you what is an investigator brochure, and that investigators brochure is made before the initiation of the clinical trial process. Now, once the clinical trial process starts, in case if any query, in case if any significant information which we get from the market, or which we get from the other clinical trials, or any other significant information from the literatures which are published, which is related to the drug, so which needs to be updated in the investigators brochure. So that updation occurs after the initiation of the clinical trial process. The next is clinical trial protocol. So clinical trial protocol, we all know that it is a document which is, it is a kind of a study plan, which and the protocol contains each and everything about the clinical trial process, like how they will be conducted, what is the procedures, what are the procedures which are involved, what is the study design, what is the hypothesis behind conducting this study, what is the background of the study, what is the inclusion and exclusion criteria for the participants, and then what is the objective, what are the outcome, how the statistical analysis will be done. So all that information is given in the protocol, and according to the protocol only the clinical trials are conducted. So that document is known as clinical trial protocol. The next is informed consent document. So informed consent document is a document which is required to be signed by the participants, and this indicates, when this document is signed by the participant, which indicates that the participation of the participants is voluntarily. They are not participating under any pressure or any force. Nobody is forcing them. They are voluntarily participating in the clinical trial process. And clinical informed consent document contains all the necessary details about the clinical trial process specifically, which is related to the risk and benefit associated with the use of the drug, so that the readers can, so that the participants, they can understand it, and on the basis of the information about the clinical trial process which is shared with them, they can decide that whether they want to participate in the clinical trial process or not. And once they agree that there is no problem, they want to participate in the clinical trial process, then in that case they just have to sign that informed consent form, which indicates that they are voluntarily participating in the clinical trial process. Even though they sign this informed consent form, and when the clinical trial process start, and sometimes somewhere in between, if they feel like that they do not want to continue their participation, then they can withdraw their consent anytime with or without telling the reason. The next is annual safety report. So annual safety report, here it is DSUR, which is known as Development Safety Update Report. And DSUR is a document which is made during the clinical trial process, means when the clinical trial process is in, when the clinical trial studies, it is in the process. And sometimes the clinical trial process, they are conducted for 3 to 4 years. So in that case, annual report means annually that what is happening in the clinical trial process, what to the regulatory requirement, the regulatory authority, they need to assess the benefit and the risk which is associated with the clinical trial process. In any way, any harm to the participant should not be conducted. What are the adverse effects which are reported till date, and what is the future planning of the procedure which is being conducted, up to what extent the clinical trial process is being completed. So all that information is given in the annual safety update report, which is known as the DSUR. Okay. The next is patient narratives. So patient narrative is a document in which the story of a patient or the experience of the patient is shared with the regulatory authorities. And the patient narrative is generally written for those participants only, those who have suffered from any type of injury or a life-threatening adverse effect, or maybe they have died. So the patient information, all the information is shared in the patient narrative, and that patient narrative is shared with the regulatory authority, so that they can understand that and what is the condition due to which this adverse effect occurred, maybe there, which is specific to the patient, or this condition will happen with all the patients. So that is all shared in the patient narrative. The next is clinical trial registry synopsis. Now, all the clinical trials, they need to be registered with the clinical trial registry, which is governed by the Indian Regulatory Authority. Okay, so clinical trial registry, there all the documents, all the information related to the clinical trial process. Documents are generally not uploaded there, if only you will find the statistical analysis plan or the clinical trial protocol, but it is not compulsory that all the clinical trial protocol for all the studies will be shared. So clinical trial registry synopsis, it contains the synopsis or the summary of the clinical trial process, like how it is conducted, what are the results which are obtained, and the same information is uploaded on the clinical trial registry under the registration of that particular clinical trial. So all the clinical trials which are conducted in US and India, they are registered on clinicaltrials.gov.in, and it is mandatory to submit all the documents and register the clinical trial process, and then after that only the clinical trial process will start. The next is abstracts and posters and manuscripts. So once the clinical trial process is completed, now the findings, they need to be communicated with the readers, with the other researchers and scientists. So for that purpose, that information is communicated via abstracts and posters or through the manuscripts, which after that are published as a research article. The next is the patient diaries. So patient diaries are what? Patient diaries are the document which contains all the information about the patient. So patient diaries are generally not made by or maintained by the medical writer. It is a work of clinical data management team. So there is a clinical data management team in the clinical research, in a whole clinical research team. So in that, that clinical data management manages all the data which is obtained from the clinical trial process. They log the data, they keep the database updated. Okay, so these patient diaries are also made and updated by the clinical data management team only. So for every patient there will be a patient diary in which you will find the details of the participants, where it will be mentioned that these participants, they have participated in the clinical trial process, what happened with them in visit 1, visit 2. Okay, and what is the the vital statistics of the patient. So each and every detail of that patient is given in the patient diary. So for every patient there will be a patient diary. Then next, once the clinical trial process is complete, now the drug is ready for marketing. So what are the documents which are required other than the applications which are submitted? So that is, first is the phase 4 study documents. So whatever documents are required for phase 4, like pharmacovigilance, like a risk management plan, RMP, and then there is a report on pharmacovigilance studies also, which is submitted, and by the marketing authorization holder to the regulatory authority. What are the PBPI programs, pharmacovigilance programs of India, which are conducted? So what is pharmacovigilance? That we will discuss in module number 9, I guess. Module number 9 is related to 8 or 9 is related to pharmacovigilance. So in that we will discuss about pharmacovigilance in detail. And in module number 6, we'll discuss about that what are the documents which are required during or after the marketing of the product. Then periodic safety update report. So periodic safety update report is a aggregate report. Okay, so DSUR, PSUR, that all comes under the aggregate report. And periodic safety update report, PSUR, and nowadays it is also known as PBRER, that is periodic benefit evaluation, risk and evaluation report. So that report is submitted to the regulatory authority again, and this report is also submitted annually, that is once in a year, where you have to write about the marketing experience of the drug and all other information about the drug, and specifically you have to write the analysis of the benefits and risk analysis of the drug. So that is mentioned. So this PSUR are submitted to the regulatory authority so that they can come to know that what is the marketing experience of the drug, whether the drug is having does not have any serious adverse effect or any life-threatening adverse effect, which otherwise it will be required to recall the product or to stop the marketing of the product. So how the drug is behaving, what is the status of the drug in the market in that particular time period. So for that, the periodic safety update reports or PBRER is submitted. Then abstracts and posters and manuscripts. So abstracts and posters and manuscripts, as you know, the study when it is completed, so the researchers, they are interested to publish the abstracts and posters to convey the information to the other readers that they have completed the study and what are the findings from the study, what is the scientific breakthrough which they have got from the study, what is the medical significance of that study. So that is conveyed through abstract and posters. What are the findings, what is the methodology which is used, that is also published, and that is also communicated through the research manuscripts. Then slide decks. So slide decks are the PowerPoint presentations. Then review literature. So review literature means now when the study is done, now that study will be included in various type of literature reviews. So that is review literature. Product monographs. So product monograph is a document which is generally maintained by the manufacturer, and in that document all the information about the products which are manufactured by that manufacturers is given. Then white papers. So white papers are the kind of guidance document which are so white papers is a kind of a guidance document which are made for different stages, like how the different stages of marketing they will be conducted, how they will be managed. Okay, so for that a proper guideline is there, so that is given, so that documents which are made, that is known as white papers. Then therapeutic training modules and question answer booklets. So for the training of sales and marketing professionals, and also for the training of pharmacovigilance professionals who will be responsible for conducting the clinical trial process, the clinical trial process, the question answer booklets and training modules from them are made. Okay, so that is these are the documents which are made during or after the marketing of the drug. So now these are the various medical writing services which are provided by the medical writer during the during the clinical trial process or after the clinical trial process is over, means during the post marketing phase or when the drug enters into the market. So these are different types of documents. Now according to the documents also, if you want, you can choose your field. Like if you do not want to work in a clinical research industry, so you can work in regulatory industry also, where you will be involved in the submission of these documents to the regulatory authorities. So there also medical writers work, and they also write for the queries and resolution for the queries, and they are involved in the submission of the documents. If any corrections are there, that is done. And then if not, if you're not also even interested to work with regulatory authorities, then you can choose a field. Like you can work as a narrative writer, where you only write the patient narratives. You can work as an aggregate report writer, where you will be involved in writing the DSUR or PSUR, which is applicable for that country. Then if not in that, then you will be involved in, then you can be involved in medico marketing writing, where you will be involved in writing the handouts, the brochures, and the written material which is required by the marketing professionals for the marketing of the drug. So it is not necessary, it is not compulsory for a medical writer. Like if they want to work as a if they do not want to work as a scientific writer, then the only field which is left for them is regulatory writing. But in regulatory writing also, they can work in different sectors. Okay. Okay, so now next we'll discuss about what are the phases of drug development. So as I've told you, that drug development, it starts with the drug discovery, which is when the drug is discovered, means so now drug discovery, it also consists of various stages. It is not a single process. It is also a very complicated process, highly complicated process, which requires a lot of time, and also financial expenditure is required. So this drug development process, drug discovery process, it is divided into 4 stages. Overall, it is divided into 4 stages. That is target identification, target validation, and lead identification and lead optimization. Okay. So first is target identification and validation. So now traditionally, we were using the medicines or the drugs which we get from natural sources, that is from plants, animal, marine source. Okay, so these are the natural sources. And then after that, an era of allopathy starts, where we are using chemical compounds as drugs. Okay, so now the chemical compounds, these are first designed. We can induce certain modifications in the drug so that they can bind with the receptor. So now first I will tell you there are certain terms and terminologies and certain processes which you will come across when we will discuss about the documents also related to the drug development process. So first let's discuss that, and then we will continue. So first of all, I had already told you that what is a drug. Drug is a chemical compound or any compound, whether from whichever source it is, which can be used in the treatment, management, or diagnosis of any disease. So that is known as a drug. And the drug has to be therapeutically safe, and it is to be therapeutically effective. Now one thing which is important to understand, that there are receptors which are present in the body. So do you know what is a receptor? Anyone? So receptors are the macromolecules which are present on the cell membrane. They remain embedded on the cell membrane. Some receptors, they are present inside the cell as well. So they bind. So the drug, it binds with the receptor. So now here the drug, it binds with a receptor. The drug will not show any mechanism of action until and unless it binds with the receptor. So the drug first, it binds with the receptor and it forms a drug receptor complex. Okay. Then after forming this drug receptor complex, whatever the drug action is, that will be seen. Okay. So now the drug, how it binds with the receptor, because so on the receptor there are active binding sites. There are several binding sites which are present on the receptor, but the site with which the drug binds, that is known as the active binding site. And the drug binds with the active binding site. So first we have to understand about the receptor. Okay. And then according to the receptor, the drug is designed. So now in this case, what the researchers do, they first identify the target. Means first they study about the disease. Now for whichever disease the drug is to be discovered or new drug is to be found. So that what is the molecular mechanism behind the development of the disease? Now there are various biochemical reactions which are going on our body, and there are various diseases which interfere with the normal functioning of these biochemical reactions. Maybe they'll interfere with the functioning of any hormone or any enzyme. Okay, so first the researchers, they study that how the disease is progressing in the body, what is the molecular mechanism for the development of this disease, and what is the target of the disease. Now that target for the disease, it can be any protein, like it can be any receptor, it can be any hormone, it can be any enzyme. So hormone, protein, hormone, receptor, enzyme, they all are made up of protein. So that's why the common word is used, that is protein. It can be any gene or it can be the nucleic acid. So first the target is identified. This is the first step of drug discovery, in which the researchers, they find out that which is the target for the disease, and then after that they study the structure of that target, and accordingly they design the drug. Like the chemical compound which is already available, chemical molecule which already exists, they do certain changes in that. And they change the conformation, they remove the functional groups, they attach the functional groups, so that drug bind perfectly with the receptor or with the target. Okay, so that is known as target. That is the process known as target identification.